Hi, welcome to Dreamers and Doers. I am Julie Russell and I'm here with my co-host Lisa Saunders.
Hi, nice to see you.
Today we're going to discuss the experience of moving to Groton, Connecticut and assimilating into the southeastern Connecticut community. I moved here about a little over 2 years ago now. What about you?
It's been 3 years now this summer, and we met how long ago?
I met walking over the bridge in downtown Mystic about a week after I moved here. So that was May of 2011.
Okay, so in 2 years we've done a lot together, like this show, and we just thought we would tell you what led up to this show and why we're doing this show and what other things we do.
And specifically for me, what I found here is so many people have reinvented who they are.
Yes.
And come to this region in need of kind of building a new sense of self. Especially, I think you and I share this, Lisa, we had to discover how to have a career here in what was, for me, a more sparsely populated region than I'd previously lived in.
Yes, me too, because I did need to quit my full-time job as a writer for Rockland Community College to move here. Many of us are here because our spouses. This is I guess we'd call it a transient area, because
I believe
a lot of us have husbands that needed to transfer here, and so us wives have to reinvent ourselves if we're not being able to jump back into the kind of job that we had.
Right. I also left a full-time job working in the Department of Social Services. So for me, it was quite a change to come to a more sparsely populated.
So what did you do? What did you do?
I worked for Louisiana State, and I worked with individuals that had mental illnesses and provided those services. Since 1998, I have worked with people in behavioral health, individuals with emotional and behavior challenges.
And how did you get into that field, into that career?
Well, Lisa,
tell us.
I studied for it. When I finished undergraduate, I found myself drawn to positions in social services. So I decided to get my master's in social work.
But you didn't know that in undergraduate school, that you were going to do that, or you thought that could be a possibility, or how did it come to you?
I knew I wanted to work within the community. And it's a strong, just base belief of mine that individuals have the ability to leave this earth a little bit better in some respects than they came into it.
So, okay.
And so my morals kind of align with that of my career, which is all people have worth.
Well, you're a good listener. So I like telling you my troubles, and I don't have to pay because I'm your good friend, and we do it all offline and stuff.
It's true. Sometimes we do have to take those conversations offline.
Yes.
But what I think we both found was many people have come to Connecticut and completed the actions it takes to make their dreams come true. I forget who said that a goal without a plan is only a dream, but somebody said it, so I can't take credit.
Right, so you have to have a plan. Now, my plan keeps changing as I figure out what it's like to be. Now I'm a freelance writer. I still have clients, some from New York that I was used to working with. But now I have more time to pursue other kinds of writing. So it has been this constant, okay, what should I focus on next? Because there's so many different directions.
But back up, Lisa, because
Yes.
you say you're a freelance writer. What I have seen is you have executed the plan for many, many different dreams, and you have reached those goals.
Which dreams are you talking about?
Well, certainly your work in the CMV community. So
Yes.
now CMV, can you give us a...
Yes, actually, I would have to say CMV, which is cytomegalovirus, and is the basis of why I'm even writing as a full-time. Really, that is really what I do all the time. My first book, it's not my first book, but it's one that I've rewritten is Anything But a Dog, the perfect pet for a girl with congenital CMV.
Now, you have published 7 books?
Yes, 7 books now.
Okay,
Yes.
and your first one was Anything But a Dog.
No, it was A Time to Weep and A Time to Laugh.
But you just said your first one was Anything But a Dog.
I know, but that's been rewritten several times.
Okay,
But it
I
first
understand.
started out, I couldn't find a publisher for it. It was the story of what it was like to give birth to a severely handicapped child. Now, I'd been a writer since high school. I had a humor column, and I thought, oh, this is great. I'm having a lot of fun. Just write, and it's all true stuff, but I'm writing it with my slant.
There you were in Ithaca, New York, writing a humor column.
No, that was in high school, in Suffolk High School in Rockland County, New York. So I thought, okay, I'll go to college to be a writer because I thought this is fun. So I sat down, read a book on how to write finally, and so and then I sat there with the typewriter and I couldn't think of a thing to say. So that kind of threw me off reading how to become a writer. So that messed me up in a way because then it taught me to do all these things that didn't come naturally. So I thought, well, okay, forget that. So I just went to Cornell University and I majored in business. And I thought, I enjoy business because I also worked on the business end of the newspaper. You know, I love selling ad space and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I did. And I was worked in accounting after graduating. So I did that for a long time till I got pregnant, and then I stayed home and ran a daycare center in my home because I didn't want to work. And then when my second child was born, she was born with a severely damaged brain as a result of me not knowing that it's very dangerous to work in daycare with young children if you've never been exposed to cytomegalovirus. There's not a lot of education on that.
Is that a virus that people are routinely tested for when they are pregnant?
No. Some people in the community, the CMV community, are fighting for that. My focus is more on education because if you test negative for cytomegalovirus, like you've never had it and you're about to become pregnant or are pregnant, they say you really, if you can get out of working with children 2.5 and younger, try to work with older children. And if you have a toddler in daycare, you need to be very careful not to kiss them around the mouth or share cookies or food with them because they might contract cytomegalovirus from the daycare center. They're not even going to be sick. You're not going to realize it. It causes more disabilities than Down syndrome. So my current goal right now is to get a bill passed in the state of Connecticut because finally one was passed in the state of Utah after all these years. I mean, Elizabeth was born in 1989 and still women are shocked, contacting me. I've just given birth to a severely handicapped child, or my child can't hear. I'm still getting these calls, and it's upsetting to me that their own OBGYNs didn't warn them about it and how to prevent it. Which, like I said, there's a lot of debate on the testing, so that's why I don't push that, whereas other people do. I'm just pushing education. Anyway, that changed my life when she was born like that. I mean, I was severely depressed. But a way of dealing with my depression was to write about it. Write what I'm thinking, because my thoughts were so all over the place. I was in horror. They told me at first that she didn't have a brain. And then they said, well, yeah, CAT scan is. She does have a brain, but it's filled with calcium deposits and fluid. Most children born with congenital CMV, I hate to say only lose their hearing, but that is a big cause for hearing loss, and it's a progressive hearing loss. So that's what got it moving in Utah anyway, because that hearing community got that tested. So, but I think now's a good time to stop for what do you call those? Public service announcements.
Right. So now we'll have a public announcement.
I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. chestnut tree, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
Thank you for joining us at this episode of Dreamers to Doers. Lisa Saunders, you were just saying that after having your second child, Elizabeth, you turned to writing to help make sense of your thoughts and your emotions.
Right, and then the sad writing, once I made sense of everything, became humorous writing again. So I focused on, the good and normal stuff as well. And that's when I started sending out articles and getting my first rejection letters and, and all of that. So, but eventually they started getting accepted, and then bigger and bigger publications. And that's why I recently wrote this book, Lisa's Guide for Writers. It's how to get published and self-published. That's because I'm just telling people what worked for me. I don't, when I read those big books on how to write, it ruined me in a way. So I'd almost rather just read what works for people and then get my own ideas from that, because it is hard depending on what kind of writer you are. Now, you like to write. You're a very good writer. You and I together wrote a book, Surviving Loss, The Woodcutter's Tale.
And that includes my insert on the stages many people go through in the grieving process, as well as your account of what happened when your daughter passed away, and a fable or a fairy tale that your father wrote.
Right. It was a fairy tale that meant a lot to me. I think it'll mean a lot to people who've lost a child or a spouse through illness, because she was, the later part of her years, the epilepsy really got out of control.
Right.
And then when she passed, and what you wrote just about how to start coming back to normalcy, how people, how friends of the bereaved, they could read this and learn how they could help their friend slowly find new purpose and meaning if the grieving friend is having trouble, getting unstuck. What do you recommend? I mean,
Well, some of the things that I included in the book for a friend of a bereaved individual is,
like you said, like one thing I liked you said, because at first I couldn't really go out, or sometimes I'd go out and meet friends for dinner because they'd want to be nice. Oh, let's go do something. And then suddenly I felt like I'd have to leave, like it was too much to sit in a public place.
so you weren't really able to keep up your end of a conversation.
Right. And I liked what you said. You said, sometimes an event like that's too overwhelming. Just maybe ask the person just to get together for coffee. You don't have to talk about anything in particular. But like you said, those kind of things to slowly get you back into society.
Certainly, going to a movie, you don't even, a person doesn't even have to watch the movie, but they're out experiencing something with another person. And as with any loss or trauma, it is about repeating positive connections. So if anybody is able to make it through the movie and have that as a positive success, when those positive events happen more and more frequently, the negative then are almost overpowered by the positive.
I would have to say that is true in my own, because she passed away in 2006.
And time goes by as well.
Right, and I have to say, moving to Mystic was great. Getting back to what we like about living in Mystic.
Oh, there's so much.
I think it's the people. Yes, it's a beautiful view. You're always having a beautiful view. If you don't want to sit in a restaurant, you take your picnic somewhere, and gorgeous, and look at the water, look at sailboats go by. It's very healing. But what I loved is
Those sailboats are healing.
well, when you're not in them.
In a strong wind, at least.
When you're not in one healing, as was my experience in your book, I didn't know that sailboats heal. I don't know. I saw it in a painting, but I didn't know that.
Well,
what it was
healing
like
is a nautical term for when the boat moves leeward and leans into the wind and is not perfectly upright.
Yes, well, I think I like looking at that
And
than-
healing your inner soul.
Yes, than sitting in it,
Mm-hmm.
screaming my head off. But anyway, what I love about Mystic, like I said, are the people, because there's so many people here that are on their own adventure, and either they're coming here to fix their sailboats and they're telling you about where they're heading next, or they've come here because they too were transferred here by a spouse's job or something
Or
like
their
that.
own job.
Or their own job, and now they're suddenly in this community that's very different from living inland, extremely different. Where I'm from, we all went to the mall all the time. That's where we had restaurants. It was such a, plastic life in a way. Not really, but you know what I mean? Everything was kind of made for you. The adventure, you have to make your own adventure in Mystic, and you can really have some life-threatening ones or just some thrilling ones, but meeting people that a lot of them had to start their own businesses with having just off-the-wall random skills that they never dreamed would turn into a business, like, when people have been laid off from work, like when we had the balloon lady on.
That's exactly who I was thinking of, the balloon lady.
Yes.
Kathleen Poole, the herbologist, acupuncturist, Kristen with Laughworks,
Right. We've
and
had
her improv group.
Yeah, like who would think that you could start your own business from something that's a hobby?
Well, this might have been rated one of the 100 most adventure towns.
Yes, it is rated by National Geographic, the top 100 adventure town in the United States. I mean, that's pretty thrilling if you think about it, that we live here, where you can't help but fall into a swashbuckling adventure, which
You're
is why.
so dramatic.
Well, which is why I wrote Mystic Seafarer's Trail, and it ends up with my 2 chapters of sailing with you.
Yes. Now, when you started out writing the Seafarer's Trail, it was part of including the 7 Wonders of Mystic. And how did it grow to include your experiences as a historian, as a person wanting an adventure, and the Wonders of Mystic?
Wow. Okay, this is why that
A
book.
loaded question.
No, this is why the book was difficult. This is why I had a lot of writer's block, because I had different parts of that book all written. Some of it's based on different adventures I'd had. Some of it's where the article I did were for the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce on the 7 Wonders, where I did a lot of that background research that took me months of doing to get the secret stories behind certain things that I chose. But I thought, okay, there is enough here for a book, but how do I tie it together? And this is where I really needed all you nice ladies that I met through walking my dog in Mystic, is because all of you would read, because I knew that if I could get chapter 1 right and tie in together all those elements of me seeking an adventure, me talking about the 7 Wonders, like you said, it's all about me. No, but and the history and the people that I met, the adventurers I met here, the living and the dead ones. I really like dead ones because, as I've told you before, they don't complain when I write about them. So I did spend a lot of time on dead people like Amelia Earhart. I have a whole chapter on her because, no, I didn't pick that as a wonder where she got married, but along the way, I met people who could tell me the secret backstory to what she was talking about on the day of her wedding, where she actually got married. And I was thrown off by a plaque that I saw in Noank. It wasn't there. It was somewhere else. So there is a lot of discovery that anybody can have here in Mystic.
So part of your adventure was going back to the primary sources of many of the historical events.
Yes, like even old New York Times articles from her wedding were a little different. Now, I usually trust the New York Times, but even they had some things that were a little, A couple of people that were actually at the wedding said it a little differently. So it is sometimes difficult to get the actual what really happened, but I tended to go with eyewitness accounts, of course.
Right.
And captain's logs when I got very involved in a family from the 1850s, Captain Charles Sisson, that went gold hunting from Mystic. I found a lot of interesting detail about his so-called failed search for gold and the death of his friend, but all that was great fun because living here in Mystic, they have captain's logs at Mystic Seaport in their collections center. Plaques on people's houses that really help you, that the historians have done the work for, that really help you find where these houses are, and you can get a picture of the people that lived here that were very affected by, say, the gold rush, because that's what brought in a lot of the clipper ships being built in Mystic. I don't know, like I said, throughout the ages and even now, through people that come in and out sailing, and the fishermen that you meet that tell you, when I wanted to meet them to go with one of them, he said, well, what time should I meet you? High tide. Well, when the heck is that? You know, I don't know when high tide is. So I'm learning all these things that, you know, where I'm from in upstate New York, we didn't tell each other, you know, high tide next Wednesday. We gave each other a time. And now that I know military people, they tell me, well, 0400 or some other thing that they say to me. You got to be kidding me. Like, I have to learn how to tell time.
1630.
I have to learn how to tell time all over again. So it is fun for somebody who's looking for adventure, moving here or vacationing here. You shouldn't spend just, you know, have your lunch here on your way between New York City and Boston. You can have a lot of adventures here, which is why I also designed the Mystic Seafarers Trail. I mean, yes, that's the name of my book, but I actually designed a trail that you can follow where you're likely to find sailors, fishermen, on top of the Seven Wonders and some other things.
One great thing is the bicycle program, where you can go and obtain a bicycle, a helmet, and a lock, and ride around town and then return it.
Yes. I mean, you know, that when I wrote that in my book and people commented to me, oh my gosh, I can't believe there is that. I don't know that they're ever going to rent a bicycle. I don't know them to ride bikes, but they just like knowing that Mystic wants them to come so badly that they, you know, will give them a free bike to borrow.
Right.
So it's just a very, very friendly town.
Right.
So I appreciate that.
You know, we have a few minutes left, and we've jumped a little bit around.
Yeah.
Because we started with you coming to Mystic and how your experiences previously with your daughter and desire to educate CMV led you into a career of writing, and how subsequently you've written several books. And now you have published Lisa's Guide and are having workshops in the community.
Yes, people can go to my website at authorlisasaunders.com, where I talk about my books, like Ever True, A Union Private and His Wife. That's also a play that I put on. And there's Ride a Horse, Not an Elevator, which has a lot of fun horse facts in it. Plus, it's just a basically true story of me being a city girl in the city, in the city, yes, of course, riding 16 flights up to my apartment, and my grandmother was upset about that, and my father was upset that when I'd go to the country, I'd ride a horse. So I just thought that was a fun title, Ride a Horse, Not an Elevator. So I go to schools to talk about that program that I have with Cornell University. They put together what they call a Horse Book in a Bucket program. So I have different programs and workshops that I'm doing with children, with adults, writing workshops, publishing workshops. And how about you? What do you like? I feel like I'm sorry, we spent all this time on me.
It can be all about you.
That's terrible. Writers are really self-centered, and I have to get better about that. And you being a therapist are all about the other person. So, but I have to give you a chance. What do you like about living here? We still have a couple minutes, I think, unless they come out and tell us otherwise. But
well, let me see. In my 60 seconds, a lot. I think because I came here with a love of nature, camping, hiking, paddling, and doing all those things, it has met my desire to be outside, except perhaps for the dead of winter, which didn't. But luckily I have inside hobbies too. I read a lot, and I also write.
What do you like to read?
I really will read just about anything. I will read New York Times bestsellers to nonfiction. I also read a lot for my profession, which is a lot of information on case studies for various mental illnesses, emotional problems, and other events that happen within the community that impact people. Certainly here in Connecticut, we were all impacted by the Sandy Hook shootings, and the literature and that comes with big traumatic events and these emerging disasters is an interest of mine, but only one, because I also enjoy a lazy afternoon at the seaport or just going around town, spending time with my friends.
Yay, for
Yay.
friends. And friends are good medicine too, right?
It is.
Don't women need their girlfriends?
They do.
Yes.
You know? So, in my experience, a lot of the things that I have wanted to do, I've been able to do since I've been here.
Ah, okay.
And
you are an adventurous. I mean, you're sailing, rock climbing, kayaking. I don't know. You've done other scary stuff. What else have you done? Whitewater rafting.
You know, to me, a lot of it's just isn't that scary. It's just life. It's how people choose to live it. But one thing that strikes me is people here in southeastern Connecticut do have a strong sense of the individual and balance that with a tremendous network within the community of helping one another. So there's that drive to be yourself, but also to help people and leave the world just a little bit better.
Yes. Well, thank you for being on our show.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week on, I always say it wrong, Dreamers and Doers.